So first of all, I want to say congratulations, everyone, to making it to the final round. It's a great tournament so far. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all debate in the finals. Uh, for our first debate, we're going to have Thomas as the affirmative versus Rick as the negation. Do any of y'all have any questions before we begin? Okay, then I will get y'all's prompts. I'm going to post the prompts into our chat room here. Our negation, Rick, will be striking first. And make sure you let me know that you can see the prompts once I send them out there. And once we're done with striking and have a topic, I'll let you know when your prep time starts, and we will go from there. Okay. I have put the prompts in the chat.
Cool, can see them. Just to confirm.
Yeah, I can see them too. I would like to strike Mars colonizing.
I would like to strike the education system over no, automation will do no harm, more harm good. I'd like to strike that. Keep the education system over prioritizes degrees from STEM fields.
So keeping education prioritizing over prioritizing STEM.
Okay, great. Then our topic will be the education system over prioritizes degrees from STEM fields. You will have 2 minutes. Thomas, you are our affirmative. Rick, you are our negation. Your 2 minutes of prep starts now. Okay, I believe that is 2 minutes of prep time. We will begin with our first constructive affirmative speech from Thomas.
Cool. Thank you for starting. As a history graduate, I probably have a bit of a bias in this debate, so do forgive that. But I still believe that the education system overprioritises degrees from STEM fields. To begin with, I think it's important to establish that when I say this, I primarily mean American universities, because we're talking about degrees, And secondly, over prioritize doesn't mean that STEM, maths, engineering isn't important as well. I'm arguing that it over prioritized, as in the proportion of funding, the proportion of attention, and the proportion of expansion of fields has been too much towards that. So if I thought of the pool of money as 100%, too much of that percentage is currently being increased towards science, maths, and engineering. I'd argue this for two reasons. One, society as a whole loses out from the benefits from all the humanities subjects, and two, the individuals lose from learning humanities subjects. So as society as a whole, our safeguard for using technology and using science and mathematics correctly depends on us learning from the past. So subjects like history, surprise, surprise, I mentioned that, really important to make sure that we use technologies right and we build a society that works effectively. We need government officials that understand mistakes we've made when we've unleashed a technology too fast or too dangerously. We also need to ponder the philosophical impacts of these scientific events as well. So, for example, the nuclear bomb would have been far less dangerous if we'd more carefully used, if we'd included more philosophical thought. And I think this is also important for the individual. Individuals shouldn't just do STEM subjects. They need to learn philosophical approaches and historical approaches so they can learn to use the tools from science more effectively too. We shouldn't think of one or the other. We should think about education as a holistic system, which prioritizes and takes both areas into account.
Great, thank you. And now we will have our first constructive speech from our negation, Rick.
We'll just pulling up my timer here. All right, everybody ready? Awesome. So I want to just talk about some of Tom's arguments first. First of all, he's talking about American universities and about the size of the pie. So funding. The problem here is that if we're just talking about the size of the pie for funding, this is the easiest negative ballot that you're ever going to write. And here's why. What actually costs more to do research on? History stuff or things that you need like physical inputs for? And with due respect to Tom as a history grad, I was a political science grad. I don't have any like extra standing here, but I do know that like things like robotics, there's a lot of materials that go into it and those materials are expensive. Same thing with biological sciences, other STEM fields. It costs more money. And so if we're just doing this on prioritization of the amount of the pie being spent, more of it should go to STEM because they have more need to do even their most basic research. So if that's what it is, we won't have like hardly any fun. Like we're already far behind with STEM stuff. We don't invest enough in American education in STEM degrees. That's why we see jobs that are going unfilled in IT, why we are getting more and more behind on scientific advancements in computers and in chemistry and in physics. We should be doing that more. So Tom then says that we have to understand the dangers and the safeguards. I think that we can do that with STEM. We just need to make sure that we have history as a component, which is the same argument that Tom has already made. So I'd say that that's ultimately not a unique benefit to voting for his side. At the same time, the costs then are huge, right? We are going to miss out on innovations and things that we all depend on, as well as training the people to fix the things that we currently have, right? We need engineers and people who have that expertise to build our roads, bridges, and infrastructure that we depend on every day. So if we're talking about safeguards, these people are trained in a code of ethics, and it is really important, but we need to spend more of that pie on technology.
Great, thank you. We will now have 2 minutes of crossfire where y'all can ask each other and answer each other's questions.
Cool. I don't know if you want to start, Rick.
Yeah, so Tom, in your world, what additional history funding here that you're taking away from science is like, what is the innovation that's going to happen for that, for fulfilling jobs that are critical for protecting our infrastructure and developing the next set of technology that we need to be a global leader?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd actually challenge the premise of that fundamentally, right? So we have a ton of innovation going on in society, but we also need the structures in society to enable the right sort of innovation. It's not just technology grows and improves, you need the political structures to enable technologies we care about. So environmental technologies are more important to me, for example, than military technologies. We need people who are developing the political frameworks and the political systems that will enable technological funding to be well allocated as well. So we need people who are humanities grads who will be able to learn the philosophical beliefs and like goals of a society to make sure that technologies are used in the right way.
Can I ask a follow-up question just real quick?
Of course, of course.
Yeah. So how many more like philosophy and history people do we need to develop those frameworks then? Like, it seems like we already graduate a ton of people who are social scientists. What more do we need to have in order to get the benefits that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, firstly, we're actually cutting philosophy departments across the country right now, and science departments are not being cut. So we don't seem to be valuing it as much as we used to in the past. And especially when you look at something like the more humanities leaning social scientists, for example, they've often been the ones who've helped us spot problems we need to solve in society, but they've been cut more and more. So it's hard to see what problems we need to solve. We don't invest back in those programs, which we used to do, but we've been cutting.
I'll turn to you for a question.
Yeah, one question I did have is, do you need a degree for all these things? I'm a software engineer and I did a coding bootcamp. Like you don't need to do a comp sci degree to be a software engineer. To do AI modeling, a lot of people don't have to have a degree. Why do we need to focus on degrees for this sort of thing?
So I think the answer to that question is in that, like, that might be true for coding, but there's a bunch of stuff like engineering where I want people to have those degrees to make sure that they have the knowledge so that if I'm driving on a bridge, it doesn't collapse underneath me, right? That's where we need the degrees, for where there is lots of areas of rigor where those safety standards are critically important, and we don't have people going into those fields at the extent that we need them, which is why we see, like city governments, for example, having a hard time getting engineers to come work for city government, for example, to make sure that our infrastructure is just protected on a basic level. Coding, I'll 100% grant you. And Tom, you seem like a real smart dude who can do that through boot camp. I don't think that somebody who's building our bridges, though, should just be able to go do an 8-week thing and be like, okay, we trust you, we're good.
That's fair. I guess I challenge the idea that the bottleneck for most infrastructure projects is lack of staffing. Most of the time it's regulation and government issues more than like the lack of people to do the engineering. We've increased the amount of engineers we have in society.
Out of cross time. Thank you so much, both of y'all. And we're going to jump back into it with our closing affirmative statement from Thomas.
Cool. I think firstly, obviously flattery works great. I'm not going to lie, so well played there, Rick. I think it's really important to talk about the overvaluing parts in this debate. We're not saying that science isn't important, but the great changes and improvements in our world, a lot of them aren't necessarily requiring new science. We know how to cure malaria. We know how to prevent it, for example. The problem isn't the lack of scientists to solve that problem. The lack of political will is the problem there. And we need to make sure that we've got enough people who are trained in ethnography, understanding our social sciences, understanding the philosophical implications of technological change, which are being cut time and time again by the American system right now, and science funding is being increased. To address the point of the size of pie for funding, it's also worth noting these are things that are beneficial to companies. Companies can fund these. Humanities doesn't get funding from businesses in the same sense. So I would argue that we don't need the government to be spending as much or education systems to spend as much. We can have private industry fund these as well. I also want to point out that a lot of these things require a mix of the two. And the problem is that we often make scientists only study science subjects, and we should get them to spend more time studying humanities subjects as well. We over prioritize them being trained as a doctor and not thinking about the moral implications of what they're doing, or engineers being trained as an engineer, but not understanding the wider societal complications and debates around building that bridge in a particular place or building in the right way. So I would say that we need to make sure that we're not over prioritizing science funding, but we still think it's important, and that education systems need to be counterweighing the cuts that they keep making to humanities departments. Otherwise, we'll lose the rich balance of innovation from technology and the positive effects of that technology without it.
Thank you, Tom. And we're going to jump to Rick for our closing negation statement.
All right, here's the issue that I think Tom has, right? We have so many social science grads who are already there, right? And a lot of them can't find work in the field. The problem isn't that we need to invest more into the training, it's that we would need to invest more at like a governmental level in employing these people. But that's not what this topic is about, according to Tom. It's about what extent the university should be focused on it. And that's where I think the problem lies. Tom has brought up, I don't think ever really answered the argument that just the inputs for these are more expensive. And so to do that research, it costs more to do. And so it requires more of the pie. He says that that private sector could fund it, but I don't think that's true either, because they're only going to fund things where there's a profit motive. If we're talking about the need to invest in things that have a social benefit, we need the government to be doing that in order to direct it. And again, we already have enough people who are trained potentially to be directing this correctly. And we ultimately don't need more folks there to do it. We just need to utilize that resource better. But we have lots of technical problems that we have still not solved. And that's where we need that. And again, we're risking innovation, we're risking maintenance, we're risking becoming a global competitor. If we have even a little bit of guidance from the social sciences, which we have, that's enough. We need to, though, to spend more money on the actual research and training of the people who get stuff done on the technical side of things so that we can have those innovations, especially for things where the private sector is going to fail us, because we're talking about government funding of universities here. At least that's my understanding of the topic that both Tom and I seem to have. So I think that ultimately it is better for us to have more investment in our STEM fields, not less, especially because we already have so many people who are trained in the social sciences. The problem isn't us spending more money on them. It is actually listening to them.
Thank you both very much. Fantastic debate, clearly worthy of a final round. Give us judges just a moment to write some extra notes on our ballots. And in a minute here, we will jump to our next two speakers. Okay, are my other judges ready to go? Awesome. And I'd like to say congratulations again, everyone, for making it to our final round. We're going to watch our second SPAR debate of the round, which will be between Wen and John. Wen will be our affirmative, John our negation. I have your prompts if everybody is ready to go. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, great. Then I am going to put the prompts in the chat now for y'all to strike. John, as the negation, gets the first strike.
Okay, I'm going to strike the first one. It says humans would be a bigger threat to dinosaurs.
I'm strike the second one.
Okay, great. So we're doing the third topic. Given the option, being talented is better than being hardworking. Y'all will have 2 minutes to prepare, and your prep time starts now. All right, I believe that is your 2 minutes of prep time, and we will begin the debate with our first affirmative speech from Wen.
Thank you very much, judges. Today, my topic is about being talented is better than being hardworking, which I absolutely agree for a few reasons. First and foremost, as we, going to school as a young child and become adult and contribute to society, it's super important for us to really find alignments regarding what is our natural innate talents and bring that as a spark and a contribution to the society. For example, if I'm good at basketball, it's perfect. I'll work on it and then become NBA one day and go play all the amazing games. I could hard work all day, every day, but doesn't mean I will be talented in basketball. Therefore, it will not lead to any output of me potentially can play NBA. In other words, if I don't have the talents, there's no point to hard work on that particular arena simply because it's waste of time. So first point here is it's so important to find the alignment, to find our natural innate talents and foster that, which allow us to really contribute to society meaningfully, first and foremost. Secondly, if we don't have the talent and we simply just hard work, again, literally go back to the NBA example, if I'm just hardworking, want to play, I can shoot basketball 24 hours a day, even impossible, I still couldn't be good enough to go to play NBAs. If that's the case, without knowing that I should actually change the course, find my own talents, I could actually have been hurt physically and emotionally and psychologically. That could actually deplete individuals and lead to even depression or even greater fatigue or danger in that person's physical body. So second piece is purely hardworking actually hurt individuals without finding alignments that really align with that person's talents. Finally, just a fun part, I think it's super important for people to be well known for talent versus well known for hardworking. Imagine someone say, wow, this person, she's well known for hardworking. That sounds like, wow, she's so stupid, versus, wow, she is very talented at cooking. That to me is, wow, this person genius. Who don't want to be a genius? Then just work hard and not have any result. So to all the reason, I believe it's so much important to be talented than be hardworking.
Thank you so much, Wen. We're going to go to our first constructive speech from the negation, John.
All right. Thank you, judges and PSDA, for putting this together. Thank you, Wen, for participating in it as well. I'm taking the negative position, arguing that given the option, being talented is better than being hardworking. I obviously strongly believe in the value of hard work. Your first argument that Wen had made, it talked about trying to find your talents. But this assumes that every person can become an NBA star, or has that ability untapped. The reality is there's a lot of people that don't necessarily have extreme talents in any one area, and there's nothing wrong with that. Society is made up of most of those people. Those are the people that do all the hard work and make it possible for society. And so I think it's unfair to have that expectation on them. It's and so I would dispute that. The other claim there, saying this refinement of being good, refine your skills so you can be good in the NBA. Even that example, how many people realistically can be a star in NBA? It's very few people. Most people simply don't have the ability to reach that. And so I don't think that's a fair example to give to society. It's NBA or bust. I mean, there's a lot more variety to life. There's a lot more jobs, responsibilities, opportunities that people can explore. And I think we should be far more practical in giving that assessment. And then I would also say that you're not required to simply choose one or the other to be talented or hardworking. You can be hardworking and still be talented. And I think that through hard work, you can actually make up for a lot of gaps in talent. Oftentimes, I was in school, for example, and did very poorly in a class early on, but I made it up through hard work in the final exam. So it is possible to improve. So I'll conclude, as my time's running out here, that certainly hardworking trumps talent most of the time.
Thank you. We now have 2 minutes of crossfire where y'all can ask each other and answer each other's questions.
Would you go first, John?
Okay. Sure. You mentioned for society, you mentioned this idea of MBA or bust, this kind of top talent. How much of society do you really think has high talent levels where you could function as society on it by that metric.
Yeah, that's a great point. Actually, that example is one of the illustration. I don't actually mean that we all going to be stars in the NBA level, but I do apply we all stars in our own arena. Whether you are accountant, you are coders, you are running business, you are playing NBA games, we all are stars in our own lanes. And we find our talents in the alignments of who we are, our natural made of, our natural interest. By that means we can be stars all across different level of jobs, social economics, and such. My question to you is, you in the third point, you talk about how hard work can make up talent. But what if one person just say, you say example, that person is really bad at his job. Say that person is terrible coding, for example, and how does that hardworking will make up for that if that person is just terrible at it?
Well, presumably he has at least some basic skills to get the job in the first place. And so wherever his level is at, if he's hardworking, doing the same thing over and over again, he's going to improve just as anyone else would. And if he has a positive attitude towards that, over time, he's going to see those skills develop. From a societal perspective, looking at that, I would far much prefer to have our society filled with folks like that there are many people out there that are being encouraged to grow and think as an example to other children, because we're not just going to say, well, because you weren't that smart, well, you no longer have value for society, and they still have human worth.
Great, thank you all so much. We are now going to have our closing affirmative statement from Wen.
Thank you, John. Great arguments. I still believe being talented is way better than hardworking. Number one, you talk about this part about being star. Again, illiterate this, we all stars in our own words, big or small. It doesn't mean we need to be famous or we need to be well-known. We need to be, on Google search all day, every day. We all stars when we find the natural alignments, also natural joy. You could be someone that love outdoor cutting trees, and that's what you do. And that is talented at what you do. And if I could never possibly do that, because that to me seems so impossible. First thing is really having that alignments, having that, we all have the talent in a way, and when we can find that alignment, we truly a better society as all, first and foremost. Secondly, you talk about how, if you have a basic understanding about the job and you have positive attitude, and that person can still be improved, all that assume that person have a basic understanding about the certain task. But think about this: if you are going to say a neurosurgeon and this person just not talented, we can't just say that, well, you have good attitude, just come here, operate on my head, and hopefully you get better in the next head. Like some jobs that require a lot higher risk than that. We cannot take that simple risk, because I don't want to be on the table when I'm hoping my daughter have a good attitude. That's just not good enough. So to me, it's yes, attitude is amazing. We of course all hold everyone, feeling positive every day, but that's simply not always the case. If we're not finding alignments, if we're not really, be true to ourselves, be honest, looking at, wow, is this working for me or not? Neurosurgery sounds amazing. I do have amazing attitude. I wanted to be good at it, but I'm simply not made up for that. I'm afraid of blood. Like that probably just means when get out of this field, try something else. So in our argument, and circle back to what I was saying earlier, it's all about how do we find our own superstars within what we do, and that talent alignment is number one reason I believe is extremely important for each and every one of us. To that reason, I think being talented is way better than being hardworking.
Thank you, Wen. We're now going to go to John for our closing negation statement.
Hey, thank you. Thanks again, Wen, for those words. I think that the biggest issue still remains is what is better for society to determine is putting an emphasis towards talent or putting an emphasis towards discipline. I don't think it's an either or. A focus on improving discipline or improving hard work is going to lead to a discipline that's going to allow talent to flourish. The example you gave a moment ago with regard to the neurosurgeon is, well, I'm making the claim that if I have this neurosurgeon and they're not very good, that means that I wouldn't want to use them. Well, we have other means in society that would check on the performance of a neurosurgeon, where you could choose to avoid having that neurosurgeon. But being talented and not having discipline is a problem in itself. What if that talented neurosurgeon is a drunk or uses drugs? And all of a sudden, all that talent in the world doesn't do him any good because he didn't have any discipline. He didn't develop the hard work. I look to examples of what we are trying to give towards society that would be encouraged. And there's certainly countless figures that we look upon people like since you used a basketball reference, I'll use a baseball reference with Cal Ripken, where he's admired because he showed up and played each day as a starter, even through injuries, even through discipline. I think that's a better legacy to pass on to our children that's attainable to everyone. Not everyone can be a talented neurosurgeon. Not everyone can be a star, but what they can be is show up every day through hard work and discipline and be an example for their family and their children. And so for reasons like that, I would just simply conclude, I think at the end of the day, we should as a society promote hard work over talent, because ultimately through hard work, talent will shine as well. Thank you.
Great. Well, that is the end of our round. Congratulations, everyone, again, for making it to the final round. This is a great round. I know us judges had a good time. We got lots of notes for y'all to look at later when you see your ballots. I hope y'all had a great time too. And we are done for the day. So go enjoy your weekend.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. And thank you, judges, again as well.